So you want to move to Houston, Texas. Well, before you do that, maybe pump the brakes. I'm going to go over 8 reasons why you shouldn't move here. Yes, that's what I said, why you shouldn't move here. So these are going to be the top 8 things that I've noticed and I deal with on a daily basis as a Houstonian. Now, I'm born and raised out in Houston, so I really didn't know that all these things I've tolerated over my years of life are actually non-existent or maybe aren't as bad in other areas of the country and world. And so since I've moved away from Houston, lived in other places and come back, I've really got that, perspective and lens of like, wow, these 8 things are just something I've noticed that really suck that I've had to deal with my entire life, and they're not necessarily everywhere else. So before you pack those bags, before you load that truck up and move over here, let's check this video out. Do your research and make sure that you can handle these things that frankly suck about Houston. So let's get into that right now. All right, so reason number 1, this kind of encompasses all of Houston and really Texas in general. I gotta say it, it's the heat. Speaking right now, I'm filming this video. It is August 2024 and it is brutally hot. So August is our peak heat of the summer season, but we have very long, hot summers. It starts kind of getting hot in the May timeframe, like into the upper 90s towards the end of May, and those temperatures kind of continue honestly through October. So September, October, it kind of cools down a little bit where the heat peaks in July and August, and right now we're smack dab in the middle of it, and there is no other way to live except being in the AC. So that's how we get around it. You stay indoors, you stay in the AC, or if you're outside, you need to be wet. You need to be in some sort of body of cold water in order to tolerate this heat, because it's really, really brutal. So if I can kind of give you some perspective, maybe an oven, when you open up that oven and that heat wave just rolls into your face, it's kind of like that meets a sauna. So, when you go into a sauna and that steam just kind of hits your face because it's so humid out here, being close to the coast like we are. And so a lot of times we have 100% humidity and we have temperatures climbing in the upper 90s into the low 100s. And so you have a heat index of 110 plus, and it is just absolutely miserable. So you need to know this about Houston and Texas in general. If you plan to live here, be ready for it. In fact, I kind of advise all of my clients or people looking to move into Houston to come during the hottest time of year to ensure you can tolerate it, to ensure you can endure it, because it is awful. It really is. I think I black it out every year once the summer is finally over, because every summer I'm in this, I'm like, wow, how do I put up with this? It's so freaking hot. So if you don't want to live on the surface of the sun, maybe don't move to Houston, Texas, because that's kind of what it feels like sometimes here, especially right now in August. If you have fair skin, make sure you wear the sunscreen, all the things to protect yourself. Don't stay in the sun too long because it is awful. You could literally die of a heat stroke if you don't drink enough fluids and you go try to mow your lawn at 3 p.m. in an August heat. So be careful. Definitely know that about Houston. That is the number 1 reason why you probably shouldn't move here, is if you can't stand really high heat temperatures. Now, moving into reason number 2. It's going to be, for me, the allergies and specifically the pollen, especially out here in North Houston where I live. We are just south of the National Forest, so we call it the Piney Woods, and that's because there's tons of pine trees. So growing up here, I've always had issues with my allergies, and I mean, especially in the springtime, your car, you don't even wash your car in the springtime, because once that springtime kind of launches in the March, April season or time of year, your car gets absolutely covered in a yellow dust that as soon as you wash it, it's going to get covered again. And that's honestly when my allergies peak, but really it's all year round. The allergens out here are said to be some of the worst. Texas in general, I know, is a pretty horrible state for allergens in the air, but I know Houston, Texas, especially with the pollen. My wife is originally from California. To this day, she gets like really bad, stuffy, like itchy ears that she just, without taking some Zyrtec or, some sort of over-the-counter medication, she's absolutely miserable. And growing up, I still get it to this day, what we call hay fever. So it feels like a cold, it looks like a cold, but it's not a viral infection, and it's just a seasonal allergy. The doctors have told me it's called hay fever. I don't know, look it up, see, I could be way off on that, but it's not contagious typically. You don't run a fever, but you get kind of the snotty, stuffy, congested nose, maybe a sore throat, stuffy ears, things of that nature for like a week or so, and then it'll go away and you'll get better. And it feels exactly like a cold, to be completely honest. So I've gotten that kind of seasonally my entire life. As I get older, it gets a little better, but it's something I still deal with on the regular. So if you have bad allergens or allergies in particular, you probably don't want to live here in Houston, Texas, because it's pretty bad. Now, going into number 3, I'm going to just kind of lump this all together, pests in general, but especially mosquitoes. So especially being close to the coast, mosquitoes can be really bad. I know out here in North Houston, because we're close to the National Forest, it's beautiful, but that comes, with more pests, more rodents, more mosquitoes, because they're out in those forests. And so, when you're surrounded by a lot of nature, just expect to be a lot of bugs. We've got giant cockroaches. So if you're not a cockroach fan, you probably should move to Houston because they're out here. Now, there are ways to kind of, I don't want to say mitigate it, but ways to, control it. And so I have a pest control company. They come out monthly and they spray around my house. And, I've got this really cool mosquito technology. They put this like flower pot style thing with like some sort of serum or liquid, and as you know, mosquitoes love to lay their eggs in still water. So anytime there's still water around or any kind of ponds that just aren't moving, there's no flow to it, that's where they're going to lay their eggs, especially after a fresh rain. So what they've done with this cool little thing that I have is it creates this bubble of like no mosquitoes eventually around my house, and I've definitely noticed it's worked. It's these pots, as I said. They put one in the front, one in the backyard. Depending on the size of your house, you may need a couple more. And it covers kind of a bubble around your home. And so what they do is they lay their eggs, are like attracted to the smell of this stuff that they put in it. They lay their eggs in it, and then it eventually like affects them and kills them. And then they don't die right away, so they drag the stuff to another still water. And so anywhere where they're laying eggs around you, they die. And it's a kind of an all-natural way to do it. There's obviously some really good stuff out there that works really well that maybe is a little bit more chemical-driven. So, I've got a wife that's a little crunchy. We kind of like to try to do things on the natural side, especially with kids in the picture. But, however you want to do it, you can go the fully leaded pest control route, and that's going to help. But besides mosquitoes, cockroaches, spiders, expect wasps during the summer, all sorts of different kinds of wasps, bees, all the things that you just got to put up with out here. And so if you're not into pests, if you're not into mosquitoes, you don't like wearing the mosquito repellent that smells god awful, yeah, Houston's probably not the place for you, because we have a lot of those, especially in the warmer seasons, which is like half of the year out here. So definitely be thinking about that if you're thinking about a move out here. Think about ways you can kind of get around that, things that you could do to ensure the mosquitoes don't get on you. There's a lot of different technologies out there and remedies and medications and all the things, or not medications, but over-the-counter sprays, things of that nature. But just consider that. Be aware of that before you move out here to Houston area, because you, especially if you have blood like mine, they seem to love me. I get eaten alive when I'm caught off guard, and it absolutely sucks, and I just kind of put up with it because I live here. All right, so going into reason number 4, I got to say it's traffic. This is really all around Houston. Now, I will say that I've been out to Los Angeles, I've been out to Chicago, I've been to kind of some of these larger cities. We are the 4th largest city in the country. But we're laid out a little differently, right? We've got a saying, Houston is an hour away from Houston, and that's just because we're so massively spread out. And so in order to get anywhere, you got to take these major highways and tollways, and I'm going to get into tollways here in a second. But besides that, because we're expanding so much, there's a lot of new construction in the outskirts of Houston. I'm out in the area right now where there's a lot of new construction out in Conroe, which is, if you're looking at a map, just north of Houston, about 45 minutes or so of downtown. And there's just a lot of new construction. And so with that, you have to expand the roads, and we get more people, beautiful people such as yourself relocating here. And so we get more traffic. Now, going back to my main point, what I'm saying is there are ways to avoid it. So I'm a realtor, and, out here, I like to drive when there's no rush hour. So we have very kind of what's the cycles of traffic that are predictable in the rush hour. If you got that 9 to 5 job, and you're traveling to the suburbs after work or down into downtown Houston for going into work, you're going to be sitting in tons of traffic, and you just need to plan around that. There's no way around it. There's nothing you can do, whether you're on Highway 45 or 59 or 290, any of these major highways, you're going to be sitting in it if you're going with the traffic, which kind of what everybody's doing, right? So there's really no way around that. There's a lot of just new construction going on, and so there's constantly construction in the streets and the roads as they try to widen it. And of course, by the time they finish it, it's already like we've already outgrown it, because it takes years to finish any kind of major highway project or road widening project. And so you just kind of have to put up with it. It often, takes us down to a single lane, and then you're sitting through a light a million times because there's only one lane when there should be three. When it's all done, there will be 4 or 5, and that's great. But in the meantime, it just sucks. So you need to plan on that. Again, there are ways around it. If you do have a remote from home work position, or you have flexible hours with your job, just don't drive during rush hour traffic, which is those core morning hours and those core evening hours. It actually frees up pretty quickly around 6:30, 7 o'clock. Traffic pretty much clears up around here unless there's like a wreck or inclement weather. In the mornings, I would say, once the bus routes are done and all the kids are in school, usually right around that 8:30, 9 a.m. time frame, it's done. And so then you could get from one side to the other rather quickly, because we have a pretty good infrastructure for highways to get you around Houston. Major highways that all intersect, beltways and tollways, which is going to bring me into my next point, going into, what is this? This is point number 5. So if you're not used to it, you need to get used to this. So tolls are a major thing out here in Houston. And again, because Houston is massive, it's all about what your time is worth. So there are ways to get around Houston without tolls, but you're going to be sitting through lights. You're going to be going through the interworking grids of all the different roads to get from one place to another. And it can take you up to 2 or 3 times longer to get from A to B without a toll. And so, out here we have Beltway 8, we have the Grand Parkway 99, which is a newer tollway. We have Hardy Toll Road, West Park Toll Road. There's so many different tolls out here, and they all interconnect to these free highways like 290, Highway 45, and 59. And so, again, it's all about what your time's worth, or if you're in a hurry, because when I look at a route, again, if I have a client that wants to kind of look at homes on Katy and I'm in Conroe, that's like an hour away, if not more, depending on what side I need to get to. And so depending on the traffic conditions, I'll look at a route with the tollway, maybe 99 Park Tollway, or I'll look at a route without, and it's usually a 15-20 minute difference. And so it just depends. If I can leave early and avoid the tolls, that's great. If I, can't, and I'm in a pinch for time, then I got to take the tolls. And so there are, easy tags, or, we don't go through toll booths anymore. That's really old school. In fact, they've kind of, I've noticed, taken them down everywhere. But it's just something to get used to, because if you're coming from an area where there's no tolls, it's quite an expenditure to think about. It adds to the entire commute. It may, it may alter your decision on what area you want to live in Houston, because, the tolls can just be so cumbersome and so expensive if you're going through so many. And so, it just, definitely something to be thinking about. It's an extra expenditure when it comes to commuting to work or anywhere around Houston. And it's kind of a must out here if you want to get around in a decent amount of time. Now, before I go into number 6, if you're a first-time viewer, thank you for checking out my video. I hope you're getting some value out of this. If you are, please like this, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you get notified from my weekly videos. My name is Mark Archer, and not only am I a local resident out here, born and raised in the Houston area, but I'm also a local realtor for the better part of almost 5 years. And so I specialize in people just like you relocating to the Houston area. And if that's, if Houston's looking to be your next home, please click the link below in the comments. We can get connected that way. Or, we can do it the good old-fashioned route. Go ahead and give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email. I've got all that information in the description or the comments below. So check that out, and that way we can get connected, and I can help you with that move here to the Houston area. Now, going into number 6, this is something I got to cover, because Houston's just kind of, Texas in general is renowned for it, or known for it, I should say. Are property taxes. So property taxes are actually pretty bad in Houston, especially because we have these MUD districts. So MUD is a municipal utility district, and it has to deal with water and sewage mainly. It's a bond that they assess to the taxes. and they're really usually outrageously bad out in new construction areas, because basically they need funding to develop these areas and put in these infrastructure of the water and sewage. And so this is how the developers are essentially paid back, or through these bonds. And so what the cool part is they are bonds. They're paid down over time. So let's say you move into a new construction area and the rate is 3.2%. Well, that's with the MUD bond included. And so as you pay that MUD bond down, it'll maybe go down over the years. Don't expect this to happen overnight, by the way. But over the years, it'll go down, maybe to 2.9, 2.8, 2.7 until that MUD bond is finally paid off and you're clear of it, and then you're just paying your standard property taxes. Now, property taxes suck, and they are high out here, but there are ways to lower them, and there are kind of cool aspects that I do find that on average, my clients moving out here to Houston do wind up saving money when they come from an area with state income taxes. So we do not have state income taxes here in Texas, which is pretty cool. I think it's really cool, actually. I've lived in a state briefly where it is, and they sucked. So we don't have state taxes, but because of that, we have higher property taxes, right? It just kind of makes sense to me. You got to make up that ground somewhere. And some ways that you can lower your taxes, if you have a primary residence out here, what you can do is file for free through the appraisal district what we call a homestead exemption. And what that does is essentially save you some money. It kind of knocks the value off ultimately of your tax assessed value. It knocks some value off of that, so that rate being multiplied by that value, it basically comes up less. So on average, I think my clients wind up, and this is case by case, don't take this as like factual, but anywhere between like 10 and 15% that you could save on your taxes just by applying by this homestead. And it's totally free, by the way. The other thing that homestead does is it kind of ensures that your value of your home it's capped at 10% year over year. So your taxes will gradually go up, but it puts a cap on it, so you don't have to worry about the tax appraisal district just raising your value of your home outrageously 30-40%, and you can fight it if it happens with this homestead, because it does put that cap on it. So that may not mean much to you. Feel free to comment below or reach out to me if you want some more explanation on how the taxes work out here, but there are ways to save, and you could also look for neighborhoods and communities and areas that have lower tax rates, or maybe are not located in those MUDs. So it's not a blanket statement that property taxes are high everywhere. In fact, there's many areas in Houston that are quite affordable if you're just paying attention to that aspect. So definitely get with me if you want kind of some in-depth knowledge of where you could look and how you could avoid those MUD taxes and maybe have a more affordable property. But in general, we're just known for higher property taxes in Houston. So you maybe want to reconsider that before you move out here, because it could push that payment on your mortgage way up, or price you out affordability-wise. Maybe you don't get the type of home that you expect or want, even at the price that they're at, because the taxes are so high. So something to think about. Number 7, this kind of goes hand in hand with the heat, are the utility bills. So during the summer, I would say that is the most expensive time of the year, because we're all running our ACs on blast, right? So of course, there are, again, ways to ensure your utility bills don't get out of control, but this is something we're known for. Utility bills can get kind of crazy. We're in a deregulated state, or I guess, a grid. And Texas, I think, is one of the only ones that does this. And so it's kind of a free market where a lot of people are getting their hands in on, these main electric supply companies. And so you really need to pay attention to the energy company or electric company that you choose, because, they all kind of charge different rates, kilowatts per hour, right? But also you need to make sure that they're locked into that rate and they're not subject to change. And, most areas, have choice, at least a few choices to shop around. So there's some cool websites you can check out that can help you, and you can comment below if you want more information about that. But definitely shop around. In some areas, it is kind of a monopoly. I'm in Conroe, and the area I'm in Conroe, there's no choice. I have to go through Entergy. However, they are, comparatively speaking, not too bad. They fixed my rate on the kilowatt per hour, and so I actually have a 4-year-old home, and my bill, it ranges in the summertime around $150. And I run my AC in anywhere from 70 to 73 degrees, give or take, if we're at the house or not. And so, again, there are things you can do to your thermostat settings. to ensure that, there's shades you could put on your windows. Obviously, having a better AC unit and not one that's having to work super hard, maybe one that's too small for your house, will help. And then just your usage in general, like, are you turning off your lights? My wife is horrible about leaving the lights on everywhere, and I'm like, hey, I'm the one paying the bill here, like, let's remember to turn some lights off. So if you're smart about it and you choose the right companies in the right areas, there's definitely ways to lower that. I also noticed, and this is a factual statement, if you go new construction, most of them are 5-star energy rated. Most of the builders are insulating the homes really well and putting in high efficiency AC or HVAC systems. And so, during the summer, and new construction might be the way to go, because your bill will be a lot less. They're just more airtight. They're sealed better. They're using higher efficiency and just higher tech and smart type appliances. And so that can really help with the energy usage and overall your bill, versus maybe living in a 30, 40, 50-year-old home in some of these other communities where they don't have double pane windows. They don't have good ceiling around the home. They use different insulation back then, and it's 40, 50-year-old insulation in the walls. So all of those things to consider when it comes to the utility bills. But before you move out to Houston, you just need to know that they can climb pretty high if you're not careful and you're not thinking about, or you're not cognizant and aware of what you're doing and who you're choosing. And you just need to be aware of that and careful when you're selecting those companies and how you use your energy in your home. Okay, and so last but not least, number 8, and this is a big one, I saved it for last for a reason, are natural disasters and weather in general. So natural disasters, of course, we just got slammed by a Hurricane Beryl a few weeks back, and that was rough. Especially most of these storms come in the dead of summer, and so when we lose power from the effects of this storm, it knocks our power down, and that's what Beryl did. We had really high winds in that storm, higher than usual. And so even out here in the North Houston area, where we're usually pretty shielded from these storms because they break down before they hit landfall, or as they hit landfall, but before they make it inland to us, usually it's just a tropical depression at that point. We're a little bit more concerned about flash flooding and just all the rain we're going to get from it, and not winds. But with that said, the winds can knock out power, and so that can really suck and leave you displaced with no power in 100+ degree weather, as I pointed out in the number 1 point. So that can be absolutely brutal out here, and there are ways to mitigate that as well. You could get a natural gas-fed generator, and that will just kick on and start working as soon as your power's out. Or, of course, there are, usually not one neighborhood is on this, we have different grids. And so every neighborhood is usually affected differently. And so if you have any family or friends, a lot of times we all kind of escape and go where the power is at, right? While we're waiting for our power to get out. In Beryl, in this last round, I went up to my in-laws. They were out in Woodland Hills and Willis. They never lost power at all. And they just weren't very affected by the storm, other than some trees down on a couple areas in the neighborhood. So, if you get, a generator, or even like a cheaper $300-400 option you can buy at Home Depot that you fill with gas, you got to keep some gas on hand. But you can kind of run those necessities like your fridge, maybe some fans and some chargers, your Wi-Fi, things like that. But it's not going to run your AC. It's not going to run your entire house like a natural gas-fed Generac generator would. So in general, natural disasters, they can be scary. If you're highly concerned about, hurricanes, if you come from a place that doesn't have those, it can be very foreign to you. It can be very scary. With hurricanes, we get a lot of warning, and of course the news just blasts it and they fearmonger because that's what gives them ratings, right? And so they'll go through that, and you'll get plenty of warning, and a lot of times last second it'll button hook and go from New Orleans or something. But, at the end of the day, one kind of good thing about a hurricane is we have a lot of forewarning. And so you can really prepare for it and really get ready. And there's a lot of things you could do to mitigate your risk on power, loss, on, damage to your home, all that kind of stuff. So there are ways to just, and obviously living in an area like North Houston, you're less affected by them than if you live somewhere south right by the coast, right? So, of course, is something to think about. And then really just the weather, the heat in the summer, as well as just like we'll get random thunderstorms. Another little saying out here is if you don't like the weather, wait a minute, because it typically changes so rapidly out here in the Houston, Texas area. And so we'll get, random thunderstorms that come in. It may hail or just dump 10 inches of rain in like an hour or 2 hour span, and so we get some flash flooding, and it can cause some uneasy feelings, or some damage to your home if you're in a bad spot. But again, just find an area that has prone to flood is what I'm trying to say. And maybe again, just kind of pay attention to those aspects when you're looking to move to the Houston area. Definitely get with a good realtor, someone like me who knows the areas that flood and can look at those FEMA flood maps and look at the history of the home, and make sure that you are taken care of and you're not moving into a bad situation that just is known to flood all the time, because there are areas in Houston that do that over and over and over again, and it's just because they're in a floodplain and they're in a low point, and some of the development around it didn't help and kind of added insult to injury. And so there are just renowned areas or known to flood all the time no matter what. And then there's areas that are just solid, bulletproof, that have never flooded, even in Harvey where we had that 1,000-year flood. So weather, inclement weather, sudden thunderstorms, flash flooding, hurricanes, natural disasters in general are a thing in a coastal city, and especially here in Houston. So it's definitely something you need to think about before moving out here. So hopefully that brought value to you. These are the 8 things that if you can't deal with all of them, let alone one of them, you should probably reconsider your move out here to Houston, Texas. And, just be thinking about how you can mitigate a lot of this stuff. Most of it can be solved if, there's just one thing on here that you're like, hey, I don't know if I could deal with that, but maybe there's ways around it. Feel free to comment. Feel free to shoot me a text or give me a call, send me an email, and we can kind of go through that together, and I can, ensure either A, you can get through it, or B, maybe it's not the right place for you. Because again, I'm going to be very transparent about all of this, and I think people that move to Houston should just be well aware of these issues, especially these top 8 reasons. Now, there's other things that kind of suck about Houston, like anywhere else, that we could go through as well. But these are just kind of the top things that I think people should be aware of before considering a move here, packing their bags, loading that moving truck, and making the move here. So I hope this brought value to you, and I'll check you guys out on the next video.